Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, I'd like to discuss how the Chinese spy scandal has developed over the weekend and how much of an impact it could have politically. The fact that, as of recording this at any rate, the implicated Tom Tugendhat is still a cabinet minister and Minister of State for Security, no less, means that Sunak is either not conscious of the damage this could cause to the Tories or doesn't care. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, when COVID doesn't screw me over anyway, then please subscribe to the channel. So that's it. I've done with COVID. I'm sick of it. Finished with it. As you can probably tell, I'm not actually done with COVID, but I am on the recovery arc and not a moment too soon. I had some sleep for the first time in 3 nights, so I no longer have to see the pink elephants. But all through the weekend, when I was on complete voice rest, the most amazing political stories were breaking. All through August, we went all through August. If it weren't for Sunak humiliating himself on a regular basis or Nadine Dorries throwing another strop, there might not have been any political news at all. Not good timing for my first bout of COVID. Anyway, what's going on with this Chinese spy story and how bad is it for the Tories? Well, let's begin with the newspaper front pages. So I said in a fairly recent video on something else that the BBC, they publish a daily selection of newspaper front pages. I always check these out every morning, and it tends to include the big ones. But if one of them carries out a particularly damaging headline for the Tory government, tends to be missed off. This usually means missing the Guardian off when they've got something embarrassing to report. Today they missed the Times off, the Murdoch Times newspaper. And this is because it's the Times newspaper which has not only revealed the name of the alleged spy who's been arrested, but more than that, their front page today is making it clear that they were, in their own words, the heart of power. See, other newspapers are reporting it from the point of view of a Chinese attack, which it is, of course, or potentially. The Times are saying, no, yes, but the Tories were weak in defending against it. That the BBC missed this front page out is, as ever, no coincidence. What makes this a particular problem for the Conservatives, quite aside from the security problem for the UK, is that the alleged spy is the director of what the Times are describing as an influential policy group. Now, influential means that they have the ears of policy setters in a major political party. Otherwise, they wouldn't be influential. In this case, it's the Conservative Party, who also just so happen to be in government right now, making the situation more newsworthy. But what brings it to the heart of government is that this think tank was set up by Tom Tugendhat. Tom Tugendhat is not only a cabinet minister and so involved in high-level government discussions, but he is the Minister of State for Security. Now, in standard response to something like this, Tugendhat has said he's had no contact with this fellow called Chris Cash, since becoming a cabinet minister. And, you go, fine. I'm perfectly happy to prepare to believe that. I will just point out that they always do say that until evidence to the contrary is published. And with the modern Tories, sometimes they carry on saying it even when information to the contrary is published. But even if it's all completely true, and I'm perfectly prepared to believe it is, it doesn't stop him having been influenced while he was having what may have been minor contact. Consider that Tugendhat is probably not a complicit traitor. It's not like Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson absolutely knew he was selling out the country. He went to parties with Russian spies. He didn't inform security. He slipped his own security detail to get drunk in the company of Russian spies. He put a Putin oligarch into the House of Lords against the strongest advice from the security services. Boris Johnson knew he was selling out the country. I don't think that's true of Tom Tugendhat. There's certainly no evidence of it. In fact, Tugendhat can point to his record of being critical of Chinese policy in a number of areas, in fact. But the fact that he was involved in setting up a think tank which is run by a potential spy draws questions. Even if it was all just unfortunate, politics is as much about appearance as anything else. In fact, more so. Perception is everything in politics. So whether complicit or not, it's not credible to claim that Tugendhat's judgment, at least, is sound enough to remain either as Minister for Security or to remain in cabinet. If Sunak had any brains, Tugendhat would no longer be a member of the government. But I don't think Tugendhat will be forced out, unless there's a huge public backlash, by the way. And I'll tell you why. In fact, I'll give you 2 reasons why. First, as with everything else that blows up in public, Sunak knew about this ages ago. Just as with the concrete scandal last week, Sunak's tried to claim that he's been dealing quickly with new information. When it's like, no, it's not new information. In fact, there's parliamentary records from January where you were talking about it. It was only new to the wider public. This alleged spy, they've not just been arrested. We're not getting this news because, oh, they were arrested at the weekend. No, they were arrested in March. As ultimate head of UK security, Rishi Sunak as Prime Minister will have been informed immediately. Someone from MI5 will have gone to the Prime Minister and said, Prime Minister, and to the Home Secretary as well, there will be several senior members of the government, and said, look, we've just arrested this fella. By the way, they've got links to one of your cabinet colleagues we thought you might like to know. Sunak has known about the arrest, he's known about the links to Tugendhat, and yet has kept him in post. If Sunak did not think it appropriate for a cabinet minister to be in charge of security and be involved with a spy from a potentially unfriendly power, he would have acted much sooner. In fact, so unconcerned was Sunak about what would have been shocking news that the arrested Cash, the actual fella at the centre of this, still had his parliamentary pass after he was arrested, according to reports. Even a month later, he still had it. You would think the least you would do is order that the man not be allowed onto the parliamentary estate anymore. And the second reason is that Sunak has form for failing to act on things like this. Gavin Williamson, Nadim Zahawi, Dominic Raab, he was forced to act. He tried to back them, he tried to keep, and then he was forced to act rather than take the initiative himself. We may end up getting another inquiry if there is a public backlash before anything happens. The only difference in this case is that there's quite a few Conservative MPs want to make an issue of it. Some of those who just promote the idea of conflict with anyone, we call them hawks, don't we? Particularly in American politics. Ian Duncan Smith is leading the charge on this. There'll be others who have more genuine concerns. But I will say this of Ian Duncan Smith. He has said that the arrested alleged spy needed to be named. There was talk at the weekend that MPs were planning on naming him using parliamentary privilege this week. In the end, they haven't had to because the Times have published it. But he wasn't wrong. Ian Duncan Smith, just because, most of what he says is never knowingly right, he did make the good point that there are people who will have dealings with this man. And they need to know that he has been arrested on suspicion of espionage. And despite Duncan Smith's motivations, that is perfectly true. There's another concern for MPs as well. So he was also employed as a researcher for Alicia Kearns, who's the chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee. Now, again, just as with Tugendhat, there's absolutely no suggestion that she's been reckless or necessarily even careless about this. But it's just the look. As a paid researcher for the chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, this fellow will have been in receipt of information that could have been useful to a foreign power, that wouldn't necessarily have been available for the public. Wasn't necessarily top secret. We're not saying he had top security clearance, but he had security clearance for some things that, for example, I would not. In fact, the Times are reporting that some MPs are upset that they were kept in the dark about this. I mean, this has been like half a year. And it's funny how they seem to have had no issue with the very obvious political interference into their party and government from Russia, but losing their minds when it's China. But leaving Tugendhat in post, I think Sunak is basically prioritising the reputation of one MP over that of his entire party. Would it be fair to sack him? Maybe not. And maybe Sunak is acting on the basis of, well, it's not fair. Tom hasn't actually done anything wrong. He's not even done anything careless. It could have happened to anyone. And that may well be true. But, and it may well be. I have no evidence to suggest that Tugendhat was reckless or careless, because I don't know enough about it. His links with cash could have been the sort that could have been formed with anyone, and he may just be the victim of misfortune. But this is nonetheless national security. And the Minister for Security has links with an alleged spy. It should, and it has in the past, been standard political wisdom that he resigns. There is form for this. Happens all the time. Not specifically related to spying. But no end of ministers has resigned, protesting their innocence whilst doing so, but citing that the unhelpful media attention with their links with whichever scandal promoted their resignation would cause to the party. They'll just say, I'm resigning just to take away unnecessary attention on the important work of government. That's standard. That happens all the time. And then if they are innocent or if it blows over, then as soon as it's all been resolved, they rejoin the senior ranks later on. There's no problem. But until it is resolved, there are questions about the judgment, at least, not necessarily the motivation, but the judgment of Tugendhat and Kearns. And it is not good for public confidence for there to be questions about the judgment of senior politicians. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships, and until next time, I'll see you later.